Hello, everyone. Welcome to those who haven't been here before. Welcome back to those who have watched before. Thanks for coming again. My name is Leah Langley, and we're here to discuss the books I read in July of 2026. I read 3 books this month, 2 really great ones, one not so great. Let's dive in. Follow me on Goodreads and Storygraph at Leah Langley. I post all my stuff there. You know the deal if you've been here before, so follow me there. The 26th book I read for the year, in the first book of July, is Medical Apartheid by Harriet A. Washington. Medical Apartheid, the dark history of medical experimentation on Black Americans from colonial times to the present. This is a book that has been in the lexicon for quite some time, and it's been on my list to read for a while, but it kind of was one that I wasn't in a rush to read. I'm not in a rush to read any book necessarily, but I knew it was going to be a heavy read, and it certainly was. I actually started reading this the day before my birthday, which is like at the end of June, and I said, let me stop. I maybe got a chapter through, or not even a chapter through, because the introduction is very, very long, very, very detailed, but I got somewhat through the introduction, and I was like, let me actually stop, because my birthday's tomorrow. I want to be a little bit of a happier headspace. This book is fantastic. I think it's required reading. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. It was published some years ago. I think 2007 is the year it was first published, and again, like I said, it's been in the lexicon for a while. It's a very, very difficult read, very intense read. It's one that I think is, again, deeply necessary and kind of very eye-opening, and it's meticulously researched, showing all this history of medical experimentation on Black Americans from the colonial era all the way to the present, as this literally the subtitle says. And she lays out so many facts with like devastating clarity and exposing the history of exploitation. Some people would say it's not even history. Some people would say it's still kind of current to some level, because I feel like on things like this, things that are so systemic, like how easy is those to be completely rooted out. And actually on the conclusion of reading this book, or actually while the book was going on, and I was thinking about this again, I'm an organ donor, and I have donor on my ID and my driver's license. And I've been told before, a doctor actually told me, and my sister now and then will say, like, you should take donor off your driver's license. Like, it's okay to be a donor of course, but like, you know, in general, if maybe people aren't going to fight as much for you if something were to happen, because they know you're a donor and you have these organs you can give. And honestly, while reading this book, I was thinking about that again, and I think I'm at the point now where I actually do want to take donor off of my license. Now, my license doesn't expire for another like 3 or 4 years, but I don't know. I might actually get that taken off my ID and just get a new ID completely. Just one thing about some of the things in this book, and again, just like the exploitation and just like so many horrible things that went on for the sake of like pushing medicine forward, but people were just so terribly mistreated, and it's just like horror. And some of those same people who were doing these horrible things, were praised, have medical schools named after them, all these types of things. And there's some cases I knew about, like Doctors James Sims. I knew about like the syphilis case and Tuskegee, but so many other things that were brand new to me. And again, like I said, just completely eye-opening, and just like meticulously researched, just a masterful work, honestly. And again, it's very difficult to read, difficult to get to, very intense, but it's something that I think is a book everyone at some point in their life should take the time to read. So I read this over a period of a couple weeks. Kind of try to take my time with a little bit, because again, it's one of those you have to really kind of digest and sit with. It's not something you can, read in the course of like a day or two. I wouldn't recommend that. I'd recommend kind of spacing out a little bit, taking time. But yeah, that was the first book for July, 26th for the year. Again, a tough read, tough one to start with, but very necessary. All right, the 27th book for the year and the second for July is this book called Crush by Ada Calhoun. It's a novel, but it reads kind of like a memoir, because this book is kind of based off the experiences of the author. The premise of the book is like a husband asks his reluctant wife to consider what might be missing from the marriage, and maybe like trying to see like what it's like to like be with other people. And the first person narrator, who remains nameless throughout the whole story, kind of goes on this kind of journey. And again, this is kind of based on real experiences that the author had. for me, like, I first heard about this book because I saw someone was recommending like a couple different like beach reads, and this was one of them. And I said, okay, like, let me read it. The premise looked somewhat interesting, for like a light summer read. And the book started out kind of okay, but honestly, as it kind of went on, the novel felt more like a bloated essay. And like I said, it's based on her own experiences. So it was no surprise to some level that this novel like read like a memoir most of the time. But my biggest issue with it, maybe not my biggest issue, but one of the issues with it that made it kind of difficult to kind of want to keep going through was I didn't really have much affinity for the first person narrator, who again remained nameless, or really frankly anyone else in the story. It was sometimes like you want to have like a character who you can hold on to, or like want to see thrive or support, or maybe if not even your lead character, kind of like some of the supporting characters that we have. But in general with this, I kind of was just like, I didn't really like the narrator that much. Certainly didn't like anyone else really in the book that she was involved with, or that we just met at different points. And it just felt like an essay that was just too long, and I felt like the execution fell flat on kind of this idea, and I don't know, it just was not something that I'm like, I didn't need to read this. I thought about putting it down and just like not finishing it, but I had this kind of thing where I'm like, I try to finish books. And it wasn't that long of a read as well, so it wasn't like a huge commitment to some level. I never really said, but I gave this a 2.5 out of 5 on Goodreads and Storygraph. Even when I was thinking about kind of recapping, I think I finished this book mid-July, I can't remember. But when I was thinking about like, my thoughts on this book, I was even thinking like 2.5 out of 5 might have been generous, because I'm trying to think about what are like the good qualities of this book, like genuinely. But that's what I gave it. I'm going to stick with it with my 2.5 out of 5. It was my first reaction after finishing it a couple weeks ago. Not for me. Not for me. If you want to read it, I've seen kind of mixed on this book. Like some people really like it. Some people really don't like it at all, kind of more in my camp. Some people like it even less than I did. Some people it's like their favorite book of like the year, or like it came out last year. It's one of those that's kind of, you'll land on different sides of it, and love that for you. So there we go. Next up here is the 28th book for the year, and the third book for July is a book called Circe by Madeline Miller. It's a novel. Now this book has been on my list for a while because a couple years back in 2024, I read this short book by Madeline Miller, Galatea, that I thought was just stunning and excellent. It was one of my, I think I probably marked it as one of my favorites for 2024, this very small book. I remember I picked it up because I just was trying to find something small to read, and I was in the library, I saw it, and I said, great, and I ended up buying it because it was just remarkable. And ever since reading that book, I had known about Madeline Miller, and since then learned about this book, Circe, and also this book, The Song of Achilles, that I actually just got. I'm going to be reading this one soon. And I said, okay, like, so she is already kind of like on my plans to read this. I kind of forgot about it. I kind of pushed it to the side, but obviously Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is now out. And in the lead up to that film, Samantha Morton plays Circe in Nolan's The Odyssey. And I was like, oh yeah, that book I wanted to read. So I like got it from the library, like kind of like basically right after seeing Christopher Nolan's film, and read it. And if you haven't seen The Odyssey by Christopher Nolan, the whole film was excellent, but Samantha Morton in The Odyssey, and there's one particular scene, but her whole performance is just like fantastic and great. So I was even watching that got me again excited to read this book and thinking about my past read of Madeline Miller's. This was just really great, very captivating. Gave it a 4 out of 5. Miller delivers this retelling, and it's through Circe's eyes this time. It's just so good, and like giving her own voice and perspective makes like this whole thing such like a rich read. I feel like if you're someone who has read Miller's work previously and have liked it, certainly pick up this book. If you are a Greek mythology kind of person, I kind of am. I feel like I'm not fully Greek mythology, but like I always say, like when I first learned about Greek mythology in like middle school, I really kind of liked it, and I, some bits of it I liked. So if you're kind of someone who likes that kind of stuff, or just wants to see a brilliant take on it, I think this is certainly a book for you. Circe in Greek mythology, like even in the Odyssey, like she's like a supporting character, someone we see on the side, like as Odysseus is going through, and other stories as well. Women, a lot of the women in general, people who sometimes like more on the outskirts of stories rather than being in the center. but in this, she fully is in the center. We're fully following her. We're rooting for her. We're just going through her whole kind of experience. So many great things in this, and I thought it was really just a great read. I really quite enjoyed it, and I think you will too. So I would definitely recommend. All right, that's really it, guys. I mean, I went through it quickly, but that's it for July. Those 3 books I read. Again, the first one for July and the third one for July, I would certainly recommend. The middle one, not so much. But yeah, that is it. Feel free to follow me on, I'm always going to say, Goodreads and Storygraph to see my reads, see my highlights, all these good things, to catch up with me on the book side of everything. Yeah, give me recommendations for books. I'm in this period right now where I I have a few books. I always ask for recommendations, but I always have like books that I'm going through or like, are on my next up. Like right now I'm reading this great Taiwanese book, but that I'm gonna probably talking about next month when we're here again in August. But give me recommendations. I will take them always. So please send me those. This is the last month of summer coming up. So if you have a good kind of beach read, good summer read, send those my way. Kind of want something maybe light fun would be kind of nice. Yeah. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for being here, supporting everything you do. It's really great. I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace out.